What was your objective then?
A list of names of the Patriots!
Welcome to Metal Gear Prophet Part 1. Who are the Patriots? This is Rias here, and during the release of the Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty 2, I found a lot of these random occurrences that came by. So whenever you see this screen, that means we're going to go to a different part of this timeline. We're going to start here with September 11th, 2001. Terrorist attack, World Trade Center destroyed, Flight 77 hit the 77-foot Pentagon on the 77th meridian after being airborne for 77 minutes. Construction of the World Trade Center began 1968, the same year 911 was implemented as the national emergency dialing code. In the same year, George H.W. Bush graduated Yale. Alright, let's get this thing rolling.
Videotape just moments ago of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center. That is spectacular pictures. I don't know if you could see the plane, and that too was a passenger plane, if perhaps some type of navigating system or some type of electronics would have put two planes into the World Trade Center within...
Meg, just hang on. No.
Oh, look at one.
Shut the window. That is still so chilling. Just like gives me goosebumps to see that. It looked like a monster. It looked like something out of a horror movie. This just massive dust cloud.
It was important to go downstairs and get outside, which I did. And as we came around the corner, we could see the fire and the smoke. There were pieces of the aircraft spread across the grassy area outside the building.
I reached out to Secretary Rumsfeld from Air Force One, and I was not able to get him, and it turns out one reason why is that he was becoming a first responder at the Pentagon. He was helping rescue people.
That was when it first really hit me, as I saw the billowing cauldron of black smoke coming out of the western wall of the Pentagon. That's when it became very, very real for me.
Before 9/11, I had never flown over the Pentagon. It just wasn't part of the appropriate air traffic control routing. Once the Pentagon got hit, and we weren't there, we were all very frustrated and angry that we weren't there to protect and defend.
It psychologically, I think, took a toll on the American psyche. It made us really recognize that how vulnerable the White House is sitting there in its lawn with its little fence around it, and how the Capitol was just a target in waiting.
It was a rude awakening, not that terrorism existed, we knew that, but that it could be brought right home, right here in the United States. And it, I think, energized the country to recognize that the task before us was to not win a war, not win a battle, and not think that we can accomplish our goals only with bullets, but to recognize that it's an ideological struggle, as communism was, and that we need to be patient and persistent and tolerant.
It's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. It looked like an airplane crashed into the building. Thank God it wasn't terrorists, though.
Terrorism, terrorists, September
11th. Threat of global terrorism, terrorism, global terrorism, terrorism. September 11, 2001, global terrorism. Terrorists, global terrorism, terrorists, September 11th, terror.
Terrorism, the attack on our homeland, back from the attack on our economy, and back from the attack on our way of life. Terrorists, hate. We must be fierce and relentless and terminate terrorism. Terrorists, you defeat them. It yearns to destroy not just the individual, but the entire international order. That's why America is safer with George W. Bush as president.
September 11th, terrorism, September 11th. Terrorism, terrorists, September 11th.
Terrorist.
Terror, September 11th. Threat, tyranny, terrorist, tyranny. People hate us.
Terrorism. September the 11th. Terror. Weapons of mass destruction. September the 11th. Terrorists. The evil terrorists. The terrorists know.
Research you had done that a third building came down that day, wasn't hit by an airplane, but you write that it did contain a lot of records that certain members of the financial industry didn't miss. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, this was a building that was a World Bank building, and from our understanding from the research that's been done, there were just billions of dollars worth of gold down below. There were also a lot of records in that building that they conveniently disappeared. This is Security and Loan Administration scandal, a lot of things along those lines. They were records that these groups were not sorry to see vanish into thin air. And Building 7, just the notion that it came down at all, when, as you said, it wasn't struck by an aircraft. I think, honestly, and I hate to say this, but I think half the Americans you could ask, how many buildings came down in New York that day? They would say 2. They would not say 3. And Building 7 was a skyscraper. It was not as tall as the 2 main buildings, but it was very substantial. And since jet fuel burns about the temperature of diesel, which isn't enough to melt steel in the first place, the notion of the third building coming down after not even being struck by an aircraft, it's pretty far out.
Well, you know, I think it's safe to say that perhaps one of the reasons that this is not really written about or really talked about much in the mainstream media is that there is this sort of stigma around questioning the events of 9/11, that it's unpatriotic.
Explosives are used to demolish buildings like this in just seconds. Okay, so it's a controlled demolition. What's the problem with that? Well, it happened on the afternoon of 9/11.
Steel. And yet we have evidence of molten iron. R.J. Lee Company, USGS, and Dr. Stephen Jones's work, all 3 separately found these microspheres.
In the dust, we found what we characterize as unreacted thermitic material in the shape of some very tiny red-gray chips, which have different properties, and in the reaction they produce molten iron, which is the prime indication of a thermitic reaction. And such a reaction can be used to destroy steel structures. What we have found is a modern version of thermite, which we call nanothermite.
There were these iron microspheres present in all of the dust samples that needed to have been formed in extremely high temperatures.
I've independently seen thermitic activity within 2 separate independent samples of World Trade Center dust. My contention, based on finding thermite residue in the dust, is that it happened before. It didn't happen after in the fires that ensued in the rubble pile afterwards. All the characters.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a...
You ever heard of the Arabs inventing anything? Then what makes you think they can bust the #1 master country in the world when it comes to slickness and conniving and do stuff over here that the KGB couldn't do? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? What they didn't tell you is the World Trade Building was sold 2 months ago. Somebody knew what was going down. Huh? For $666 million, which is 666, huh?
September the 11th. Them folks, they said they did never flew a plane in their life. They said they just was, they learned how to simulate this and all that. And here's the paper here, say flight school owned by Warren Buffett that they went to.
Yes.
So he a thug and a dog and a tramp. Flight school owned by Warren Buffett.
That's right. And they only asked to learn how to fly the plane, not land it.
Yeah, you hear it?
Yes.
That's what he said. Huh? That's what he said. Yeah. See, that's another trick. Why would I go? You know the guy on the plane that crashed right here by Pittsburgh? When he called his mama, you know, calling on the plane. Hey, Mom, this is Dick Brown. You never give your first and last name to your mother. See, they always mess up because they're so stupid. Hi, Mom.
You're right.
Richard, you gonna give your first and last name to your mother, huh? And then you look over here, and it says, flight school says FBI trained suspects prior to hijack. FBI. See it? Yeah. So everybody is walking through this maze and in the game.
And they was looking on the side of the window, and when the building started to fall, we saw orange lights go off on each floor, like implosion, like detonation. And not only that, the news people say we hear bombs going off in the building. You see, we hear bombs going off in the building. So we saw this, and
I've had the engineers say it's not
possible at all.
And here's the problem, Joe. They announced it fell in its own footprint 27 minutes before it did on 5 channels.
Damn.
BBC World.
Is that true?
BBC, CNN, and CBS. Joe, I like to eat food.
I do too.
It was 4 o'clock. I've been on air since the morning on syndicated radio. I drove down to the local pizza place at 4 o'clock, got my pizza, was eating it in the car, and I heard CBS radio driving home. And they said, the decision has been made to save other buildings to control demolition. The Solomon Brothers building, Building 7. By the way, we have these clips now. But no one archived stuff then. So I go on there and I go, yeah, they just blew up a building. Everybody started freaking out.
But here's the thing.
And then they blew it up.
How long does it take to set up explosives to the point where you could pancake
It normally takes a week.
A week?
That was the next story. But then I interviewed the head of emergency management for New York.
Yeah.
And the loose change people got him on. And he says, no, I was there. They had bombs. The CIA. You know it was based in Building 7, right?
What?
The CIA, the FBI, all of it.
Wasn't it NSA as well?
Everything. See, he always says, oh, I don't know.
Quick, they knew Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy.
Because the people who did it were identified and we knew who they were.
Well, then why couldn't we have stopped them beforehand if they were identified and we knew who they were?
It was a failure of intelligence. Everyone's accepted
No, it
that.
wasn't. We knew before with Condoleezza Rice's memo on August 6th when it stated right in the memo, bin Laden to steal planes and run them into buildings. And more stuff is coming out now also, how much the Bush administration ignored the intelligence. It was almost like they ignored it because they wanted it to happen.
Oh, come off it, Jesse.
No, not oh, come off it. Wait a minute. Every war fought starts with a false flag operation.
You can't, in all seriousness, sit there and try and make out anybody.
Okay, let me ask you this, Piers. Wait a minute. Let me ask you something. How much studying have you actually done of 9/11 other than what the government's told you and what mainstream media has told you? I've been studying it 4 years.
I was editor of a national newspaper.
I've talked to people.
Wait a minute. In depth every day for 5-6 months.
Really?
So I know a lot about it.
Well,
then
how come? Let me ask you this then.
You cannot say that any member of the Bush administration knew it was going to happen or wanted it to happen. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Ridiculous. Okay, let's talk about your BBC. I have a tape of a BBC reporter broadcasting directly back to England talking about a third building has collapsed. World Trade Center Building 7 talks for 7 minutes. All the while she's talking, World Trade Center Building 7 is still standing right behind her. It didn't fall for another half hour. Yet they were doing a pre-broadcast back to England that, yes, it's true, that this building fell and it hadn't fallen yet.
If you're trying to make out the British Broadcasting Company, one of the most respected news organizations.
Building collapse in New York, you might have heard a few moments ago, was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York behind me, down by the World Trade Centers, of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. But this isn't the first building that has suffered as a result. We know that part of the Marriott Hotel next to the World Trade Center also collapsed as a result of this huge amount of falling debris from 110 floors of the two twin towers of the World Trade Center. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
That's what you would hope, because this whole downtown area behind me has been completely sealed off and evacuated, apart from the emergency workers. That was done by the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, much earlier today because of, course, the dreadful collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. But New York, very much a city still in chaos. The phones are not working properly, the subway lines are not working properly, and we know that down there near the World Trade Center there are 3 school schools that are being turned into triage centers for emergency treatment. And I know that over in New York Harbor, where the famous Statue of Liberty is, there's a field hospital where 1,500 people are being treated. And we have heard, though it's unconfirmed as yet, that 100 New York City police officers have been taken there as well for treatment. But we do need to confirm those figures for the officers.
It's now, what, some 8 hours since the attacks. Is there any estimate yet available of the number of casualties in the World Trade Center?
I think we can only go at this point with the words expressed by the mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, that it's too frightening to think how many there could be. We know that it's about almost 300 people on the airliners that were used in these attacks. But you've got to remember, this was 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday morning. It's busy in downtown Manhattan in the financial district then. The World Trade Center itself has 50,000 workers. There are tens of thousands of tourists who go up there every day. The figures are almost too frightening to contemplate. You can understand why nobody yet wants to put a figure on them.
Listening to the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, a bit earlier, one of his messages was, business...
All right, now I got you all nice and traumatized from watching September 11th videos. We're going to put these two sections together because the first one is just kind of a flashpoint. September 23rd, 2001, Drew Bledsoe, number 11 of the New England Patriots, is injured by the New York Jets player Mo Lewis, launching the career of Tom Brady. So we have something wearing number 11 getting hit by a jet and being injured basically for the rest of his career. October 26, 2001, the USA Patriot Act, commonly known as the Patriot Act, is a statute enacted by the United States government that President George Bush signed into law, which allows the Federal Bureau of Investigation to search telephone, email, and financial records without a court order, and the expanded access of law enforcement agencies to business records, including library and financial records. Subpoenas issued to internet service providers were expanded to include not only the name, address, locale, and the long-distance telephone toll billing records, telephone number or other subscriber numbers, or identity and length of the service of the subscriber, but also session times and durations, types of services used, communication device, address information, IP address, payment method, bank account, and credit card numbers. This was provided by Wikipedia, so anyone can see this.
Season was barely underway when Drew Bledsoe suffered internal injuries from a brutal hit by Mo Lewis.
Did you realize when you got hit how serious that was?
No, I couldn't think straight then. I had on top of the internal thing, I also got my bell rung pretty good. Really, my insides didn't hurt until after the game, but then they started to hurt pretty bad. There were some touchy sequences when I got to the hospital when I was under, where they actually, for a while, were considering opening my chest up to try and find what was wrong.
You have to realize how close he came to death, okay? And that's a fact, because I wrote the stories about it. I talked to the surgeons involved. I talked to the Patriot doctors. A very lucky guy that he's alive.
Had the Patriot Act been in place earlier, 9/11 wouldn't have happened, and that absent a Patriot Act, the country may have seen more 9/11s over the past 2 years. A double negative that's unprovable, but enough to scare you witless. Close quote. Is John Ashcroft correct that the Patriot Act is essential to the defense of the nation, or is he merely attempting to scare us out of our wits? Dorothy?
Well, I think the fact that they say it's unprovable is the fact that we should rely on. It is unprovable, and one of the problems since the Patriot Act was passed and since September 11th has been the fact that there are so many actions the government's taken in secret that we have so little information and we can't hold the government accountable.
Former Attorney General of the United States Ed Meese?
I think John Ashcroft is absolutely right. The Patriot Act is an act that's important in order for us to protect the country against terrorism.
Terrorism, 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 September 11th.
threat of global terrorism, global terrorism.
Decided to make this modification to say you have to go to a court if you want to get access to this phone metadata. Your concern is that even that is not enough of a way of protecting people's privacy.
I think there's really two issues here. One of them is whether it's useful or not. You've had the courts, first of all, declare it illegal. Judge Leon in the U.S. District Court in Washington called it Orwellian. So is it legal? The courts are saying it's illegal. The appeals court said it's illegal. Second of all, is it useful? You've had the President's Review Board come out and say that there was nothing useful that's ever come out of it. The bipartisan privacy group came out just a few months ago and said that they've never found anything useful that's come out of it. And if you look back, the NSA actually had another program. It was the identical program, except for it was for email. Everybody who sent an email would be who you sent it to and where it came from and so forth would be, a record would be kept on it. They got rid of that because it was useless, and I think they should do the same thing with this program.
Michael Mukasey, why isn't it, given what James Bamford is spelling out, that there are real questions, as he was suggesting, about what's any value to this program, why continue it?
Well, it is not at all useless. In point of fact, it is used to assemble intelligence. It's not a crime-solving tool principally, although it has solved crimes, including exposing the Zazi plot to blow up the New York City subways. But if you're asking the question of how many plots it stopped, then you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking what's the value of the bits of intelligence that are gathered and used with other bits of intelligence that are available to build a picture of what it is that we're looking for and of various circles of plotters and networks of plotters. As far as courts having found it unlawful, the fact is that the FISA court has considered this more than 40 times and has found it lawful each time. The fact is that there are district judges that have found it lawful. There's one court of appeals that acted, but there are two other courts of appeals that have the issue before them that haven't spoken.
Well, let me put that to you, James Bamford. Given what the courts have said, given the question he just raised about the ability this gives the government, whether it's the metadata or the metadata with the court permission, it's something that is needed to fight terrorism.
Everybody that's looked at this has said that it's virtually useless. The NSA originally came up and said there were something like 44 different areas that we were able to stop terrorists. It came down to one incident that ended up being useful, and what that was finding some taxi driver in San Diego that sent $8,000 to some group in Somalia. That was the only thing they've been able to show since 2001 that this program has produced in terms of intelligence. So, no, it isn't. And then the second issue is the problem of trust from the American public. We've had the warrantless eavesdropping program that was illegal, a violation of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The only way we found out about it was through whistleblowers. The same thing with this program here. It was only Edward Snowden that we ended up knowing about this. So I think there's a lot of legitimacy to people being very skeptical about the government's claiming that this is so valuable.
Michael Mukasey, what about that, the question of trust?
Well, the question of trust, there are 33 people who have access to this.
It included amendments to the Wiretap Act. This let police obtain court orders to spy and eavesdrop on suspected cybercriminals and terrorists by intercepting their phone calls, emails, and any other form of communication. It added credit card and bank account numbers to a government-controlled database that could be accessed with court permission. It also allowed government officials to use trap and trace devices and conduct sneak and peek searches. Trap and trace devices can trace phone calls to individuals and addresses. Sneak and peek searches are searches where officials or police can break into someone's home or office and snoop around without their permission. In other words, the Patriot Act made it easier for the FBI to spy on Americans and search their homes.
See it. You motherfuckers signing papers, I'm the one to tell you, your ass is getting ready to go to jail. Because you're some greedy ass motherfuckers and you're signing papers. Now let me let you in on the deal. All right, let me get down with this shit. Because they just locked up a whole damn church in Atlanta last year and gave them niggas 40 years. So you fuck around with all these fast-wearing motherfuckers that don't know what the fuck they're doing, your ass going into jail. So let me go into history on how they done set this shit up on your ass. Because certain things need to be told. Now, I avoided this shit for the last 3 years, but goddamn it, let's go with it. Don't sign no fucking papers under no Moroccan Empire. Because as of March, when they sent them 3 black guys to jail for trying to blow up the so-called World Trade Center, we know it's a lie. You are now on the terrorist list. Now, let me break this shit down to you. They started with the Blackstone Rangers in the 1980s. In 1985, under one of the guys was in jail, and he made a deal with Gaddafi to blow up a building. Gaddafi being a part of Reagan organization. See, let me explain something. There's no such thing as enemies. That Ahmadinejad works for Obama now. They're all together. That Kim Jong motherfucker in Korea, whoever, didn't know that in 2004, didn't America give them motherfuckers $1 billion food aid? Wait a minute, now these supposed to be the enemies. And they gave them $1 billion food aid. All right? So when Gaddafi was doing his shit, the Blackstone Rangers, the guy made a deal with the Blackstone Rangers with the Gaddafi thing. That's the setup. So that becomes the first terrorist. Because the Blackstone Rangers was L. Rookins or whatever. Whatever, was it the L. Rookins, whatever? Yeah, okay. The guy was in jail that made the thing. Now listen to this shit. Now, I ain't going with some bullshit. I'm going with some bullshit we got caught up in Atlanta. So I'm not doing some theory. And because I'm able to travel the country, I'm telling you, they locking up Moors every month. Number one on the Homeland Security, the Homeland Security Terrorist Act, the Moors. You announce yourself as Moors, well, congratulations. You are now a terrorist. The Nation of Islam. Any Islamic group, any what they call subversive group, Hebrews, Moors, or any of this stuff, any group, ASCAC is on there, whatever groups you got going on, all your Hebrew groups, your Egyptian groups, your Catholic.
I'm going to mention here for your show and things, but we're preparing litigation against. Who does the ratings? It's a secret rating system for like Taliban, Al Qaeda, the mafia that's given to bank executives. 2 days before PayPal banned us, they put a hate designation from the Southern Poverty Law Center saying I'm basically a terrorist. So when they call
terrorism, September 11th. Threat of global terrorism, global terrorism, September 11, 2001, global terrorism.
Over the Western world, I am listed, and we've been sent documents out of England and out of the U.S. that we were sent this by high-level banking people that are freaked out. We made contacts, lawyers checked it, they can't believe it. They have designated me as an international terrorist, and that's how they took 5 of my 6 bank accounts and got me down to 1 bank account with perfect credit, saying you cannot take money on your shopping cart, InfoWarsStore.com, for your products, T-shirts, books, whatever. You aren't allowed to be in commerce because you are a terrorist.
And what do they use to define terrorist?
H. It's classified symbols, and we got some of the documents.
H is hate.
H is hate. And then just
so they just decide arbitrarily that you're a hateful person, that you promote hate.
No judge, no jury. It's the global Chinese social score. That's what they're all testing for here.
Well, this is what we were talking about that's very important. This is actually dangerous. This is actually dangerous to give people the ability to define people without any strict, rigid qualifications, without anything that you can point to on paper.
If I was a convicted murderer and got out of prison, I could start an online store and sell T-shirts.
Right.
If I was Charlie Manson, he had like 4 TV specials on CBS on 60 Minutes. When I was a kid, I'd watch Charlie Manson.
I don't think he was allowed to get paid for those, though. I think that was part of the thing because of he's involved in murder.
Well, sure, they have laws on that. But the point is, he would do Geraldo Rivera shows. The point is, Hitler basically was the #1 thing on the History Channel when they first launched it. So you can hear what Hitler has to say, even though we know he's a bad guy. Well, why can't you hear what Alex Jones has to say? Because they have found what I talk about is effective. It gets people thinking, and they want it shut down because we've relaunched populism. InfoWars has done this. My audience has 1776 worldwide. populism, anti-globalism, anti-communism, anti-China. And the big tech companies, Google and Apple and all of them, have publicly moved to China, and they publicly agreed to censor and control the population. This is in the news. And that's why Tim Cook got so mad at me. And I made a huge issue to Trump, and I sent reports to the president I know he got. And that's what happened on that Sunday night when they said, that's it, we're done with Jones. We have to take him down, because I got investigations going at the national security level, sending big reports to the president through law firms of Reuters and AP and then the articles, which he wasn't getting, where China is given the code keys by Apple, this is last year, and is moving their database there, and all the code keys have been given to the Chinese government, and Apple says that's just part of being there, and Google's building Dragonfly.
You knew about the Patriots? Well, yes, to a certain degree. It seems like everyone knows about them except me. They didn't choose Snake to be a hero, so they decided to do a smear campaign. I think the Patriots wanted to make an example of him so everybody would think twice before opposing them. That's it! They set all this up just to nail you guys. No, there's more to it than that.
Alright, now we're in the core of where all this information spawns from, at least for me. Got Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, released November 13th, 2001. An organization called the Patriots are the main antagonists in the game about controlling information on the internet to form the minds of citizens. And the game ends with a terrorist attack in New York. And that's what really alarmed me when I started to look into this, when I saw it came out with a terrorist attack in New York City at the end of the game. And this is the Metal Gear Solid timeline, not the actual timeline, which I'll show you a picture after I'm done speaking. You got Major Zero, the main antagonist throughout the series of games ranging decades. Growing old, starts developing a lack of trust in people and doesn't want anyone to take control of the Patriots. Major Zero commissions the development of an advanced AI called the System to take control of the Patriots. The system consists of 4 different AI cores controlled by a 5th master one. Okay, so now we're going to go into what I refer to as the speech of Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty 2. And if you've played it before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, then have a look-see.
The president said that arsenal gear was the Patriots' key to supremacy.
That's as good a description as any.
What exactly is it?
It's a massive data processing system capable of controlling information on a global scale.
A data processing system?
That's right. The system's a social device for maintaining the Patriots' control.
You've lost me.
Well, in this day and age, information emerges from every direction and is freely distributed. A variety of information gathered by servers employing the latest in high-speed communication networks and P2P technology is rapidly circulated to individuals. In fact, the speed of this circulation process is accelerating on an almost daily basis. The Patriots seem to be afraid of this development. Apparently, they believe that their role will shift from dominant to dominated.
Huh?
Let me give you an example. You're aware of Solid Snake's anti-Metal Gear activities, aren't you?
Yeah, I know a little about it.
Well, that's just a small sample of uncontrolled information. I can guarantee you the Patriots did not want Solid Snake's name publicized. Now, look at it like this. Political scandal, corporate corruption, up until now, the Patriots have managed to keep a lid on these and other self-serving events. But with their existing data processing system, they're no longer able to effectively control the flow of information generated at the individual level. With the newly created system, they can fully regulate digital information. High-level information can be categorized in stages, given clearance levels, and deleted as necessary, never to be seen by the public. By deleting such information, the Patriots can shape the course of history as they see fit.
Somebody's bound to catch on.
No, the memory capacity, not to mention the lifespan of the average individual, is extremely limited. On the other hand, digital information lasts virtually forever. It doesn't deteriorate.
So?
The alphabet, 26 letters, right? It could have been 30 letters. What if the 4 deleted letters were controlled by a program?
Impossible.
It's not. In fact, something similar is already underway. Do you know how many genes exist in an individual?
About 30 to 40,000?
Right, that's what was announced at the turn of the century, but there's actually 100,000 according to the original theory advanced by the scientific community. Information regarding the remaining 60,000 was suppressed by the Patriots.
No.
Why? How would you know? Do you know what a gene looks like? Did you count them yourself?
There are research organizations.
Of course, and their reports have already been subtly altered. They're even beginning to believe the doctored reports. GW is a system that allows the Patriots to decide what will be recorded in tomorrow's history.
So what we're talking about is one huge censorship system for deleting information which might be inconvenient to the Patriots.
Exactly. The actual physical core for handling the task, GW, is installed in Arsenal. It's the only system in the world with an optic neural AI that has a parallel processing capacity of 980 trillion Hammets.
I suppose that being a specialist in neural AI and complex logic played a significant role in your association with the Metal Gear project.
That's not the only reason.
What do you mean? I guess there are plenty of other reasons.
Yes, there are.
I understand.
Do you?
So Arsenal Gear was actually designed to protect the GW system, wasn't it?
Yes. It's armed with everything, including nuclear weapons, and is fully equipped with cyber-terrorist countermeasures. Physically and logically, it's the ultimate fortress for housing GW.
But is the AI actually capable of controlling everything?
No. GW is only the system's core. It's only for deciding what data is stored or deleted. The actual subsystem for executing the task exists within our social structure.
What?
Do you remember the panic that gripped the computer industry prior to the end of the century?
You mean the Y2K problem?
That's right. If you recall, our government supplied the world with a countermeasure program, using the internet at full capacity. The program was distributed to every governmental organization, every key facility throughout the world. In addition, the same program was included in an OS application for distribution among the public.
Let me guess. The Y2K countermeasure contained a program designed by the Patriots.
Yes, and everything supplied from that day onward contains the same program.
Impossible.
Do you know how a computer operates? Do you really know the basic principles on how data is exchanged? Nobody's aware of it, but there's a subsystem in place, and it's about to be activated.
Is that why Solidus wants to burn out every electrical circuit in Manhattan with a nuclear blast? Support. Who sent you? The Colonel?
No. The Patriots.
That's right. George Washington took office as the first president of the United States of America 200 years ago today. And it happened right here. We were going to declare another independence, the dawn of a new nation, here. The end of the Patriots' secret rule, liberation of this country. This was where it was supposed to begin. This is where freedom could have been born.
All you want is power at any cost.
Jack, it's not power I want. What I wanted to take back from the Patriots are things like freedom, civil rights, opportunities. The founding principles of this country. Everything that's about to be wiped out by their digital censorship. Jack, listen to me. We're all born with an expiration date. No one lasts forever. Life is nothing but a grace period for turning the best of our genetic material into the next generation. The data of life is transferred from parent to child. That's how it works. But we have no heirs, no legacy. We brothers are called les enfants terribles, cloned from our father with the ability to reproduce conveniently engineered out. What is our legacy if we cannot pass the torch? Proof of our existence, a mark of some sort. When the torch is passed on from parent to child, it extends beyond DNA. Information is imparted as well. All I want is to be remembered by other people, by history. The Patriots are trying to protect their power, their own interests, by controlling the digital flow of information. I want my memory, my existence to remain. Unlike an intron of history, I will be remembered as an exon. That will be my legacy, my mark in history. But the Patriots would deny us even that. I will triumph over the Patriots and liberate us all, and we will become the Sons of Liberty!
Raiden, are you receiving? We're still here.
How's that possible? The AI was destroyed.
Only GW.
Who are you?
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap!
Is essentially a cybernetic collective of people and machines. That's what a company is. And then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. And then there's sort of like a collective AI in the Google search, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network.
Did you say nerd?
Not nerd, node.
Oh.
Like leaves on a big tree. And we're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI, and and Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives.
If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is, Jack.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Right. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context?
Depends on the context on the platform.
Is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context?
Depends on the context on the platform. And it's also not banned permanently. Like, you get warnings.
Well, she was banned permanently, but let's be clear about what happened.
But she was warned
explain, because you
multiple
explained it to
times.
me. What did she actually do?
My understanding, and I don't have the tweet by tweet the way that I did for the others, but my understanding is that she was warned multiple times for misgendering an individual that she was in an argument with. And this individual is actually bringing a lawsuit against her in Canada as well. So it is.
So you have an argument between two people.
Again.
And you have a rule that enforces only one side of the ideology, and you've banned only one of those people.
We have a rule that attempts to address what we have perceived to be instances of abuse and harassment.
And she was saying
it's your ideology.
Right, but it is an ideology, right? If she's saying a man is never a woman, if that's what she's saying, and then biologically she's correct, we obviously have a debate here. This is not a clear cut. This is not something like you can say water is wet, this is dry. This is not like something you can prove. This is something where you have to acknowledge that there's an understanding that if someone is a trans person, we all agree to consider them a woman and to think of them as a woman, to talk to them and address them with their preferred name and their preferred pronouns. But biologically, this is not accurate. So we have a divide here. We have a divide between the conservative estimation of what's happening and then the definition that's the liberal definition of it.
I think that's right, Joe. And I think what I'm trying to say is that it's not that you can't have those viewpoints. It's that if you're taking those viewpoints and you're targeting them at a specific person in a way that reflects your intent to abuse and harass them.
But what if it's in the context of the conversation? What if she's saying that I don't think that trans women should be allowed in these female spaces to make decisions for women? And then this person's arguing and she says, a woman is biologically female.
Well,
you are never going to be a woman.
She responded with, men aren't women, though. And that was her first, in the series of events, that's what got her the suspension and the warning.
That was one of many tweets that was
Right.
part of providing context, and that was actually the second actually strike is my understanding. But
why is that a strike?
Yeah, why is that a strike?
But again, like, it's the context of I don't have all the tweets in front of me. There were like 10 or 12 tweets going back and forth. And my understanding is that in that context,
Do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context.
that was part of providing context, and that was actually the second actually strike is my understanding. But
why is that a strike?
Yeah, why is that a strike?
But again, like, it's the context of I don't have all the tweets in front of me. There were like 10 or 12 tweets going back and forth. And my understanding is that in that context,
To do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested...
I thought, this particular student wanted to be called a boy, but there was nothing, no professional dialogue, as I'm suggesting.
Right.
Obviously, I wanted to incorporate this student in the class, welcome her to the class and get...
Him?
Well, of course, this is the issue, isn't it? We don't know, do we?
You were calling her by her. You always called her by her name.
I was calling her by her first name.
You weren't using.
Yes.
You weren't using pronouns.
Not at all. I would say first name. But I wanted to incorporate her in the lesson, and I'm speaking from a place of personal conviction, saying her. So that's obviously an issue for discussion.
Do you find it difficult to say him?
It's not that it's a difficult thing for me, but I think as adults, it's something that we can talk about. And as we're referring to this, I was trying to incorporate said student into the class.
At 6'2" and weighing in at 220 pounds, male-to-female transgender handballer Hannah Mounsey is dominating at the Women's Asian Championships in Japan. Before his transition...
weightlifting record while identifying as a female to highlight what he calls the absurdity of claims there's no biological strength difference between men and women.
I keep hearing about how biological men don't have any physical strength advantage over women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot.
Zuby's viral tweet got over 1 million views and comes amid a backlash against the growing number of athletes identifying as female in women's events. British Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies tweeted that women's sport must be, quote, protected from people born as men. However, the world's first transgender world champion, cyclist Rachel McKinnon, hit back, insisting trans women athletes have no unfair advantage.
Are you against the use of alternate pronouns?
I'm against the use of legislation to determine what words that myself and other people are required to utter.
But would you use alternate pronouns if a student asked you to?
I think I've made my position on that clear already.
Well, perhaps not to our audience at home who are just being introduced to this. Would you use alternate pronouns? And why not?
Because I don't believe that other people have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share.
Well, we have a graphic to show our audience at home, just some of the pronouns being used or asked to be used as alternates. Among them you see here Z or Zim, Z or here, Z or Zir, also hey, or a rather, and per. So just some of the alternate pronouns there. Professor Pete, when you hear Professor Peterson saying that this is oppressive, how do you respond to that?
The Peterson drama has done real harm to real people on campus. He's made it harder to be transgender or non-binary. I know this from personal experience. I'm non-binary and transgender, and I know how it's felt to be on the U of T campus for the last month. And I also know from private communications with other affected people. You know, in New Zealand, where I grew up, academics have a statutory role enshrined in the Education Act to be a critic and conscience of society. So I think that's an idea worth exporting to Canada. So I'd like to give Peterson about a B+ for his critic role recently, and an F for the conscience part. A student once said to me when I finally obtained tenure, "Now, Professor, now that you have obtained superpowers, you must agree to use them for good, for peace and justice." So I invite Peterson to start doing more of that.
Well, Professor Peterson, those who are asking for this alternate use of alternate pronouns, they are saying it boils down to respecting their human rights. How do you respond to that?
I don't think it boils down to respecting their human rights. I think that it's an imposition on freedom of speech that's being implemented at a legislative level. I also think that if there was a naturally evolving solution to the linguistic problem that's being posed by a small fraction of the transgender community, that people would have already adopted it. We've never had a situation in the usage of English before that required legislation to produce a transformation in the manner in which people spoke. It's a very dangerous precedent. So it's one thing to tell people what they can't say. So, for example, we have legislation making it illegal to do such things as deny the Holocaust. It's a completely different thing to demand that people use certain words when they're formulating their own ideas. And I mean, it's also absurd. I mean, here's one thing that's happened that I don't believe the formulators of this legislation ever foresaw. So in New York City, for example, there are now 31 protected gender identities. And I see no reason whatsoever why each of those gender identities can't demand the use of their own pronoun. And that absurd things like that have been happening on the University of Michigan campus, for example, where students have been given permission to tell faculty members and others what pronouns they're to be addressed by, and they're multiplying rapidly out of control. So the law is bad from an ethical perspective.
A trans woman is making the Free the Nipple campaign more inclusive, or at least that is according to Courtney Damone, who is undergoing hormone replacement therapy. And as she grows breasts, she's looking towards Instagram and Facebook to ask, you know, at what point will you take my nipples off of your service?
Spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths, neither class.
The left, these liberal journalists only follow each other.
Yeah, in the run up to the 2016 elections.
Yeah, and so I mean, I still believe that to be true, and I've worked in these offices.
It has changed. They've done the study again, the visualization, and now there is a lot more cross-pollination. But what we saw is folks who were reporting on the left end of the spectrum mainly followed folks on the left, and folks on the right followed everyone.
Right. What you were talking about earlier, that there's these bubbles.
There's bubbles, and we've helped create them.
Yeah.
Them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
We're trying to stop that from happening.
It's our responsibility as rulers. Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
That's what it means to create context.
I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you?
That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will.
That's not true. I have the right.
Does something like a self exist inside of you?
That which you call self serves as nothing more than a mask to cover your own being.
In this era of ready-made truths, self is just something used to preserve those positive emotions that you occasionally feel.
Another possibility is that self is a concept you conveniently borrowed under the logic that it would endow you with some sense of strength.
That's crap!
Is it? Would you prefer that someone else tell you? All right then. Explain it to him.
Jack, you're simply the best, and you got there all by yourself.
Oh, what happened? Do you feel lost? Why not try a bit of soul searching?
Don't think you'll find anything, though.
Ironic that although self is something that you yourself fashioned, every time something goes wrong, you turn around and place the blame on something else.
It's not my fault. It's not your fault.
In denial, you simply resort to looking for another, more convenient truth in order to make yourself feel better.
Leaving behind in an instant the so-called truth you once embraced.
Should someone like that be able to decide what is truth?
Should someone like you even have the right to decide?
You've done nothing but abuse your freedom.
You don't deserve to be free.
We're not the ones smothering the world. You are.
The individual is supposed to be weak, but far from powerless. A single person has the potential to ruin the world.
And the age of digitized communication has given even more power to the individual. Too much power for an immature species.
Building a legacy involves figuring out what is wanted and what needs to be done for that goal. All this you used to struggle with. Now we think for you.
We are your guardians, after all.
You want to control human thought? Human behavior?
Of course. Anything can be quantified nowadays. That's what this exercise was designed to prove.
You fell in love with me just as you were meant to, after all. Isn't that right, Jack?
Ocelot was not told the whole truth, to say the least.
We rule an entire nation. Of what interest would a single soldier, no matter how able, be to us?
The S3 plan does not stand for solid snake simulation. What it does stand for is selection for societal sanity. The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3. not you.
What you experienced was the final test of its effectiveness.
That's crazy.
You heard what President Johnson said.
The Arsenal's GW system is the key to their supremacy.
The objective of this exercise was to establish such a method. We used Shadow Moses as a paradigm for the exercise.
I wonder if you would have preferred a fantasy setting.
We chose that backdrop because of its extreme circumstances. It was an optimal test for S3's crisis management capacity. If the model could trigger, control, and solve this, it would be ready for any contingency. And now, we have our proof. Raiden, there are also reasons behind your selection. Solidus raised plenty of other child soldiers. Do you know why we chose you over them? It was because you were the only one who refused to acknowledge the past. All the others remember what they were and pay for it daily.
But you turn your back on everything you don't like. You do whatever you like, see only the things you like, and for yourself alone.
Yes, Rose can attest to that.
You refused to see me for what I was. I lied to you, but I wanted to be caught. You pretended to be understanding, to be a gentleman. You never made a conscious attempt to reach out to me. The only time you did was when I gave you no choice but to do so.
I was just trying not to.
What? Trying not to hurt me? Dear, the one you were trying not to hurt was yourself. Avoiding the truth under the guise of kindness is all that you did. It occurred to you to do nothing but look out for yourself. Even if you claim that it was for my sake, that feeling was nowhere to be seen. In the end, everything was for your sake. I was never part of the picture.
Exactly right. So you see, you're a perfect representative of the masses we need to protect. This is why we chose you. You accepted the fiction we've provided, obeyed our orders, and did everything you were told to. The exercise is a resounding success.
Didn't I tell you that GW was still incomplete? But not anymore, thanks to you.
Your persona, experiences,
All right, taking a little break to lighten the mood a little bit. I told you that the game is very in depth, so I'm gonna show you random moments in the game just to lighten up the mood just a little bit. It's getting kind of heavy in here, you know what I'm saying?
Raiden, what are you doing? You forget yourself.
I can't believe you. What's wrong with you?
I highly disapprove. I'm just...
What do you mean, I'm just?
Rosemary, you're right. One shouldn't stoop to vulgar levels just because they've set foot on the battlefield. But I can sympathize with you there.
You what?
Nothing.
How twisted. The both of you. Jack, what the hell are you doing? You are sick, you know?
Rosemary.
Colonel, was I wrong in what I did?
Perhaps. There are certain things that a person can and can't do.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
You understand?
Yes.
Come out of this thing alive, both for yourself and so as not to waste your training.
No need to tell me that, Colonel.
Right. And I recommend you not throw away that picture.
Colonel?
What?
You're not joking.
Huh.
Are you?
Continue your duties. Understood.
What do you think you're doing, Snake? You don't have enough to keep you busy? Try to remember the mission if you can.
What do you think you're doing to her?
you think you're doing? That hurt! Oh, you suck! Oh, Venus and Cancer.
Venus in Cancer.
Managed to get this far, it must be thanks to that Raiden guy. But what is the deal with him? He's got a weird name, dresses pretty weird too. And I'm not really sure about the way he holds my hand and things. He's easy on the eyes though, so I guess I can let that slide. But I got my own ideas about that hair. I wonder if well, it must be. I could ask him later, but he'd probably get ticked off. I'll leave him alone.
Killing an enemy in first person, for example, splattered blood on the player's screen. Several seagull gags were also implemented. If the player looks up at seagulls for a few seconds, bird droppings hit the screen. Running across areas where bird excrement is visible causes Raiden to slip and fall in a cartoonish manner. Dog tags were also a new addition to the series. Players get these tags by shaking down guards and pointing a gun to their head or crotch. The majority of tags are the names of fans who entered a dog tag contest on Konami's website. The developers wanted players to feel as if their actions truly affected the game's world. This included interactions with other characters. If the player aims a gun at Snake while he's sleeping in strut B, he immediately wakes up and points.
Alright, now we're gonna combine basically the end of some Metal Gear here and some Tuck Rule game, January 19th, 2002. February 3rd, the Patriots win the Super Bowl. And then we'll go on from there.
Before the game's release, the September 11th attacks in New York prompted the team to change the finale. The original ending had the ship Arsenal Gear dislocate the Statue of Liberty and crash into Manhattan. There's also a newscast showing the Statue of Liberty resting on Ellis Island after the credits. Another change influenced by the event was the spelling of Raiden in Japanese. It was initially written in katakana, which closely resembled the lettering for Laden. Not wanting their protagonist to be associated with Osama bin Laden, the team instead wrote Raiden in kanji.
Lost the football. It's on the ground, covered by the Raiders.
The quarterback's arm was going forward. It is an incomplete pass.
Well, there's no doubt his arm was going forward.
Sure, but he had held up.
I think it's safe to say that this will be talked about quite a bit.
You think?
And the Patriots have won Super Bowl 36. Unbelievable.
In much time, the football served as the key for activating Arsenal Gear.
Alright, you've reached the last checkpoint of my first documentary, Metal Gear Prophet Part 1, Who Are the Patriots? So, I grew up playing Metal Gear Solid a lot in middle school. The gameplay was amazing for that time, and even now, the physics stand up. But now that I'm older, I'm a man, I can see how the information they were trying to convey to me was very vital, especially in these days of the internet with like instant access and censorship. Most people can see how this is becoming a big issue now. So I wanted to make a compilation of all these things. So now we're just going to write out with the year the commissioner destroyed the tapes of the Patriots secretly recording other teams was 2008. That was in between the years of the two parts of the Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty fictional timeline, not actual timeline. The game came out in 2001, but it was based in 2007 and 2009 with the Big Shell. Now, the very last one, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, Big Shell Incident. The fake oil spill, which was about what's going on in the game, was a fake cleanup facility, occurred 2009, game timeline. The New Orleans oil spill occurs 2008, and the New Orleans Saints win the Super Bowl 2009. Now, this is a documentary about the Patriots, so we're going to stop here. We're not going to go any further into the Saints winning their Super Bowl because it's just a continuance of things going on over and over and over again. So we're just going to take this one snapshot at this one time period. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys will play some Metal Gear. And I hope this information was good for you.
Did the Patriots do anything to gain an unfair advantage in the Super Bowl, the one that you guys lost to the Patriots? Just he said, yeah, as a human, there's a sliver of doubt.
Okay.
Do you have doubt?
I mean, you're kind of forced to have doubt. You know, when other stories start to come out, you then think, well, the stuff that they recorded and our walkthrough that the commissioner decided no one needed to see the tapes of, what was on those tapes? So, yes, I mean, the human element is to doubt whether what the commissioner said, was it true or not?
Did they record
allegations of visiting teams' headsets mysteriously malfunctioning during a game? And one team was so paranoid about the Patriots sneaking into their locker room that they bolted their locker room door during a game, which is against Foxborough fire code. Among its other findings in the ESPN Outside the Lines article and also one from Sports Illustrated, we learned this. Originally, Spygate was believed to have been 8 games taped between 2000 and 2007, but the National Football League's investigation, according to ESPN, was that the Patriots were involved in illegal taping of 40 games as opposed to 8. The league actually visited Foxborough Stadium. They were in a conference room, and they grabbed the evidence, and literally NFL employees stomped on cassettes of 40 games, literally stomping plastic pieces of the cassette on the floor. They then took notes that were accumulated by Bill Belichick's assistant Ernie Adams, and they put them in the shredder. The report also cites former Patriot coaches saying that low-level Patriots employees would sneak into the visitors' locker room and steal play sheets so the Patriots would know what the first 15 to 20 plays would be from their opponent in that particular game.
Who sent you? The Colonel?
No, the Patriots.
In total, 2,996 people were killed on 9/11. It was the most fatal attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. In response, President George W. Bush and his administration proposed a new law called the USA Patriot Act, or the Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism.
Terrorism, September 11th. Threat of global terrorism, global terrorism, September 11, 2001, global terrorism. Terror!
Everybody crashed into the building. Thank God it wasn't terrorists, though.
That's why America is safer with George W. Bush as president.
Video assistant, nor in a number of tapes he handed over.
The fundamental information that Matt provided was consistent with what we disciplined the Patriots for last fall.
Matt Walsh met with Commissioner Roger Goodell for more than 3 hours Tuesday to talk about what's known as Spygate. The scandal centers around tapes the Patriots made of opposing teams' coaching signals. The NFL has rules against such eavesdropping and has already penalized the Patriots and fined their coach after the team was caught in the act last season. However, questions still lingered about past practices.
His birthday is May 2nd. His birthday is May 2nd. So from February 3rd or May 22nd, from his Super Bowl to his birthday is 108 days. You see this? Super Bowl to his birthday. And his birthday is May 22nd. So it's 108 days later. And why does that matter? Because in gematria, Super Bowl most valuable player equals 108. Super Bowl most valuable player equals 153 as well. This is with the alphabetic order. This is with the reverse alphabetic order. And with regards to the 153, notice it's 15 weeks and 3 days to his birthday, or 108 days. The thing about 153 is it's the 17th triangular number. This was the Patriots' 59th season. 59 is the 17th prime. It was a rematch of the Super Bowl from 17 years earlier. And the Rams lost in Super Bowl 36 with 17 points. Story about how Todd Gurley put out the tweet when he was 17 years old saying he'd play Tom Brady. Or Todd Gurley said he'd play Tom Brady in a Super Bowl when he was 17, still in high school. And both of those guys have an August 3rd birthday, which we'll get to. Again, it's all scripted. It's all planned so long in advance. These guys are born and bred to be that are in the league. The other thing about Julian Edelman, his name equals 121, just using the alphabetic order. 121 has a square root of 11. He wears the number 11. This was the Patriots' 11th Super Bowl. Notice Julian Edelman also equals 49. This was Super Bowl 53, which was the 49th Super Bowl of the modern era because the AFL and NFL hadn't emerged for the first 4. But Julian Edelman, 121, square root of 11. He wears the number 11, Patriots 11th, 49th Super Bowl of the modern era. And again, the riddles in this game were very much biblical. Daniel 8, the GOAT defeats the Ram. Tom Brady became the GOAT. Revelation, the letters written to the Church of Philadelphia. Patriots just lost to Philadelphia. Now they get their vengeance against the Rams. But the letters written to the Church of Philadelphia about how the false Jews will bow down to Philadelphia. Tom Brady's menorah, Robert Kraft, Julian Edelman losing to Philly, getting the vengeance against the Rams. Anyway, 121, the square root's 11. Notice Jew is 11. Edelman, number 11. In Gematria, Super Bowl's also 49, so was NFL. Robert Kraft got the Jewish Nobel Prize January 9th, 2019, a date with 49 numerology. Go figure. Jewish Nobel Prize equals 83, like football equals 83, like how Tom Brady, born on 8-3, 41 years old. The game was iced with a 41-yard field goal that gave the Patriots 13 points, 41 the 13th prime. Now, coming back to the fact that Super Bowl MVP in our most pure cipher is 108, and the award came 108 days from his upcoming 33rd birthday. Again, geometry with the alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order sums to 108. Perfect symmetry, big concept in geometry. The most important shape in sacred geometry is the vesica piscis, the shape of the football caused by the overlap of 2 circles. And for every Super Bowl, they sew 108 game balls because it's all symbolism. Same reason you got a 53-man roster, a 53-yard wide field. Again, the shape of the football is the vesica piscis, the most important shape from sacred geometry. And a lot of this knowledge, very important to Judaism and Kabbalah. Vesica piscis, what it means is fish's bladder, which equals 53. Been talking about it all year. Patriots 53, Los Angeles 53. 53 is the 16th prime number. You get 16 combined points in the Super Bowl. LA falls to 1-3 in Super Bowls, losing with 13 points by the Patriots. Tom Brady got his 6th championship. So did Belichick at age 66. 6 at age 66, just like Nick Saban did in the same building. Where do you learn about 666 at?
What they didn't tell you is the World Trade Building was sold 2 months ago. Somebody knew what was going down. Huh? For $666 million, which is 666, huh?
Book of Revelation. Remember in the book of Revelation, Revelation 13, 18. That's where you learn about it. Revelation, Julian Edelman, false Jews, bowing down to Philadelphia. Bible, Daniel 8, the GOAT defeats the Ram. So anyway, 53 is the 16th prime. You get 16 points in the Super Bowl. When you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 together, you get 6. The Rams go down with 3 points. Their only points were a 53-yard field goal, which further proved that they're using technology in the games. The game was slicing wide of the goalpost. It was going to miss clearly, and then all of a sudden it miraculously bent back to the left. And here I've been saying for years, the games are scripted to the point they're using technology to ensure outcomes. What did he do on his last field goal? Kicked it 20 yards wide to the left. Give me a break. It's because the score had to be this. 53, the 16th prime. Brady gets his 6th. 6 equals 16. GOAT for greatest of all time, what they're calling him. GOAT 16, 16 points. The word Jew also has Gematria 16. Again, got to know your base ciphers, alphabetic order, forwards and backwards. The Patriots' 11th Super Bowl. 11 has the gematria 63. Tom Brady became 6-3 in Super Bowls. Just in case you're new here, it was Tom Brady's 307th career game this Super Bowl. It was his 307th career game. It was in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 307. 307 is the 63rd prime number. That's why it was Lock City. That's why it was Lock City. It's why the people following my work, they won big this year. We had Patriots since the end of last Super Bowl. Week 1, I said a good future is Patriots to beat the Rams in the rematch of 17 years earlier. On the 17-year anniversary of September 11th, it was the 9/11. It was the Patriot Act. It was the Patriots. And this comes full circle now. Patriots and Rams.
Is it magic or is it magnets? Tiny magnets placed on the ball, ensuring a strong attraction to the metal rim. Watch.
Justin Tucker. Are you kidding me? The first miss in his career.
Well, he's been flirting with the uprights during the course of the game today.
Snap in the hole.
Look at
looks
that.
good.
That thing just, that's like my golf swing right there. That thing just sliced to the right.
I mean, statistically, in his 7th year, the most accurate kicker in NFL history at 90% overall kicks. Look at that stare. He's in disbelief, as are many.
And as a kicker, you kind of know, right? If you hit the ball well, you shouldn't have that look on your face. So it looks like Justin Tucker really felt like he hit that ball the way he...
To the 19 for a first. Coming after him. Oh, they take him way back. Now forcing a long field goal attempt. Had it been an incompletion, it would have been 44 yards. Only 4 all-time in the Super Bowl field goals made from plus 50. This is 53 yards to tie it. And Zerline's kick is good.
Anyway, 53 is the 16th prime. You get 16 points in the Super Bowl. When you add 1 + 2 + 3 together, you get 6. The Rams go down with 3 points. Their only points were a 53-yard field goal, which further proved that they're using technology in the games. The game was slicing wide of the goalpost. It was going to miss clearly, and then all of a sudden it miraculously bent back to the left. And here I've been saying for years, the games are scripted to the point they're using technology to ensure outcomes. What did he do on his last field goal? Kicked it 20 yards wide to the left. Give me a break. It's because the score had to be this. 53, the 16th prime. Brady gets his 6th. 6 = 16. GOAT for greatest of all time, what they're calling him. GOAT 16, 16 points. The word Jew also has gematria 16. Again, got to know your base ciphers, alphabetic order, forwards and backwards. The Patriots' 11th Super Bowl. 11 has the gematria 63. Tom Brady became 6-3 in Super Bowls. Just in case you're new here, it was Tom Brady's 307th career game this Super Bowl. It was his 307th career game. It was in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 307. 307 is the 63rd prime number. That's why it was Lock City. That's why it was Lock City. It's why the people following my work, they won big this year. We had Patriots since the end of last Super Bowl. Week 1, I said a good future is Patriots to beat the Rams in the rematch of 17 years earlier. On the 17-year anniversary of September 11th, it was the 9/11. It was the Patriot Act. It was the Patriots. And This comes full circle now. Patriots and Rams on the 17-year anniversary of 9/11. For the record, the name Julian also equals 41, like Super Bowl, like how Tom Brady's 41. Again, 41's the 13th prime. Rams fall to 1-3 in Super Bowls. LA's 13, NFL's 13. See how they did it? 13's the 6th prime. Again, Brady was 6. You write out 6th, it equals 26. The AFC got its 26th Super Bowl. Everyone at halftime was wearing Jordans. Jordan equals 26. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, was 6 championships. I want you to see Michael Jordan's birthday real quick. And born in 63. Tom Brady 6-3. Born February 17th. 217. How scripted it is, you guys. They're farming these people. They're planning all these scripts. All the sports are interrelated. New England Patriots 217. Notice fish's bladder. Again, that's what vesica means. Vesica means fish's bladder. 217, the 53. Check this out just one more time. Super Bowl LIII 82. It was the Rams' 82nd season. New England Patriots equals 82. Coming back to Jordan's birthday, February 17th, 1963. 2 plus 17 plus 63. 82 date numerology. Also, 2 plus 17 plus 19 plus 63 is 101. 101, the 26th prime number. Jordan, 26. Again, 6th, 26. AFC gets its 26th Super Bowl. Brady gets his 6th. So does Belichick.
You know, they blame the attack on Osama bin Laden. Buildings 1 and 2 were 110 stories tall. Building 7, 47 stories tall. These numbers used ritualistically, again and again.
Japanese. It was initially written in katakana, which closely resembled the lettering for Laden. Not wanting their protagonist to be associated with Osama bin Laden, the team instead wrote Raiden in kanji.
The day New York became a state, 7/26/1788, 7 plus 2 plus 6 plus 1 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8 equals 39. Established on a date with 39 numerology. Whoops. New York, 39. New York's the Empire State, Empire 39. NY, 39. When you flip the alphabetic order around, making Z1 and counting up to A is 26, NYC is 39. Look at the name George, 39. The name Clinton, when you flip the alphabetic order around and use numerology, 39. And 39 goes beyond just this code of letters and numbers. Look at how tall the United Nations is in New York, 39 floors tall. Look at what year New York hosted the World's Fair, 1939. Look at every single New York Super Bowl won by the Jets, 4 by the Giants. They all come back to the number 39, all of them. The hardest one to see is the Jets win because they won 16-7, like 167. 167 is the 39th prime number. The rest of them are easy to see. Just look at the scores. Also, look at the coordinates of the stadiums that the games were played on. You'll see it's 39 Central. Look at the date numerology for some of them. Dates with 39 numerology. Every New York Super Bowl comes back to 39. And it's a number that's used again and again and again ritualistically in all of the world of sports for New York. It's more than just the Super Bowls. This is the New York number. G-Min, by the way, with the alphabetic order, is 39. G7, M's 13, E's 5, N's 14. Added up, G-Min, 39, what they call the Giants. So, if you flip 39 around to bring this back to 9/11, you get the number 93. This code of letters and numbers, it originally comes from Hebrew, where you do read from right to left. So, 39 with the Hebrew way of reading is 93. And reflections in this study are important. The 93 World Trade Center bombing was blamed on the blind sheik, which equals 93. The new building that stands where the World Trade Centers once stood is the One World Trade Center, which equals 93. And I'll remind you that Bill Clinton became president in 93, and the first thing he did was he stopped the underground weapons testing of nuclear and atomic bombs, which had gone on for decades. And atomic bomb equals 93. Look up the story of the last pilot to die who dropped the bombs on Japan. He was 93 years old. And Look up the definition of ground zero. The definition of ground zero is the point above or below ground where a nuclear or atomic bomb explodes. Then go look at the footage from the day of September 11th and ask yourself how those buildings turned to dust. And ask yourself if in 1993, when they were working on the World Trade Centers for months after the 93 World Trade Center bombing, if explosives might have been planted at the conclusion of 50 years of underground weapons testing that were meant to do exactly what was done September 11th, 2001. I'll remind...
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
Keep going, let's go! Come on, Glenn. Come on, Glenn, you can do it, man.
Sergeant Churchill on here. Sergeant Churchill on here.
All right now.
Yeah.
I'm just tired. I'm tired. I don't have a radio enough, so. Hey. The North Tower. Waiting.
Oh my God, there it goes!
The mainstream media is that there is this sort of stigma around questioning the events of 9/11, that it's unpatriotic.
They lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction. All right.
What was your objective then?
A list of names of the Patriots.
MGS2 also references Kojima's favorite movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. In the opening scene, a brief shot shows the tanker's name, Discovery. This is the same name as the spacecraft operated by HAL 9000.
People being very skeptical about the government's claiming that this is so valuable.
Michael Mukasey, what about that, the question of trust?
Well, the question of trust, there are 33 people who have access to this.
Mind you, in 1968, 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began. George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones. The movie Space Odyssey 2001 came out, which is about technology overtaking man. And the New York Jets won the Super Bowl. Don't forget it was the New York Jets who sacked Drew Bledsoe that gave rise to Tom Brady and the Patriots right after the Patriot Act. New York Jets, think about it. Think it's a coincidence? It's not. The entire world of sports and news and entertainment is all scripted together. That's why there's so much predictive programming for 9/11 in the decades that came before it. And with regards to all of those things happening in 68, 33 years before 9/11, notice that false flag sums to 33. False flag 33, watch this. If you write out 33, it sums to 156. And why does that matter? 911, this is what's nice about gematria.com. You can type in a number and get its properties. 911 is the 156th prime number. And another very relevant cipher to this study outside of the base ciphers is Jewish gematria. There's actually a film that came out in 2014 called Gematria, and they use this cipher. But I just want you to see that false flag is 156 in that cipher. 911, the 156th prime. Again, when you write out 33, it sums to 156. Think about it. So, also today, if you watch ESPN, today ESPN for the first day started a countdown to them moving to New York City. And they started the countdown on New York's birthday. And what day are they moving to New York City? They're moving there on September 3rd, a date that can be written 3/9 like 39 or 9/3 like 93. And from today to September 3rd is 39 days later. Like I've taught for years, ESPN loves to put these numbers in front of people's face. Anytime ESPN puts a number on the screen, and I mean anytime, well, except for maybe like when they're counting the speed of the pitches in baseball games. And even sometimes there it's riddles. But anytime you're watching SportsCenter, the numbers they're putting up, there's meaning behind all of them. This study is paramount to the people who control this world. Freemasons and Kabbalah practicing Jews who own your government, media, banks. And that's not a secret. Also, the star of First Take is Stephen A. Smith. Look at the name.
And now that we've gone through all that information, it's time for my personal favorite parts of the Metal Gear Solid games. It might be a game you might look at as like a military killer game, but you can literally go through the entire game without murdering one person. This is an option. This is a very in-depth game. And my favorite parts of the game, even when I was younger, before I even knew what any of these words meant, for some reason it stuck with me. So my favorite parts of playing these games were watching like the ending cutscenes with like the good philosophical information they wanted, which I feel like is the whole point of the game, just to get you to hear what they really, the real truth about what they want to convey to you. Not the Patriots, but I'll be like the creators of the game, that it's all about just love. That's the goal, about freeing yourself mentally, which is a big reason why I even made any of this, because whenever I tell people about the information in here, they're like, whoa, I've never heard that before. So I hope you guys enjoy what is my favorite parts of the Metal Gear Solid series.
Who am I, really? No one quite knows who or what they are. The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point. There's no such thing in the world as absolute reality. Most of what they call real is actually fiction. What you think you see is only as real as your brain tells you it is.
Then, what am I supposed to believe in? What am I going to leave behind when I'm through?
We can tell other people about having faith. What we had faith in. What we found important enough to fight for. It's not whether you were right or wrong, but how much faith you were willing to have. That decides the future. The Patriots are a kind of ongoing fiction too, come to think of it. Listen, don't obsess over words so much. Find the meaning behind the words, then decide. You can find your own name. And your own future.
Decide for myself?
And whatever you choose will be you.
I don't know if I can.
I know you didn't have much in terms of choices this time. But everything you felt, thought about during this mission is yours. And what you decide to do with them is your choice.
You mean start over?
Yeah, a clean slate, a new name, new memories. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide. It's up to you. By the way, what is that?
Dog tags.
Anyone you know?
Never heard the name before. I'll pick my own name and my own life. I'll find something worth passing on. They taught me some good things, too.
I know. We've inherited freedom from all those who fought for it. We all have the freedom to spread the word, even me.
Snake, what about Olga's child?
Don't worry, I'll find him. Count on it. As long as you keep yourself alive, he's safe.
Do you know where Liquid went?
I put a transmitter on his ray.
Did he head for the Patriots?
Yeah, but I have a feeling they gave Ocelot a bogus location to begin with. Cheer up, we have a better lead. This contains the list of all the Patriots.
But Ocelot took it.
The one we gave you wasn't the real thing.
What?
This virus is coded to destroy only a specific part of GW, namely the information about the Patriots' identity. Which means that there's a parameter coded in here that defines what that information is.
I get it. Analyze the code and you can probably find out where they operate. Count me in.
No, you have things to do first. And people you need to talk to.
Snake?
What's wrong?
Nothing. Can I ask you something? Who am I, really?
I wouldn't know. But we're going to find out together, aren't we?
Oh. Yeah.
See me for what I am, okay?
I know.
Do you remember this place?
Of course. This is where we first met. I remember now.
Hmm?
Today is the day I met you.
That's it.
I think I found something to pass along to the future.
What?
He said all living things want their genes to live on.
Are you talking about the baby?
Yeah. The genes aren't the only thing you pass on. There are too many things that aren't written into our DNA. It's up to us to teach that to our children.
What kind of things?
About the environment, our ideas, our culture, poetry, compassion, sorrow, joy. We'll tell them everything together.
Is that a proposal?
This is for your ears only.
isn't just about passing on your genes. We can leave behind much more than just DNA. Through speech, music, literature, and movies, what we've seen, heard, felt, anger, joy, and sorrow. These are the things I will pass on. That's what I live for. We need to pass the torch and let our children read our messy and sad history by its light. We have all the magic of the digital age to do that with. The human race will probably come to an end sometime, and new species may rule over this planet. Earth may not be forever, but we still have the responsibility to leave what traces of life we can. Building the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.